there's no denying it. Driving the Corvette Z06 on that racetrack was a blast. And the Corvette with its mid-engine layout is exotic, and the Z06 with that naturally aspirated 5.5 liter V8 making 670 horsepower, well, that's as exotic as anything from Stuttgart or Maranello. I actually did a deep dive story on the Corvette Z06's engine, looking at all the things that went into it. And it's really a marvel of engineering. And if you don't believe me, let's just stop for a second here and listen to one of the Z06's drivetrain engineers describe what they did to get that kind of power out of the engine and make the car accelerate the way it does.
Hi, my name's Dustin Gardner. I'm the assistant chief engineer that's lucky enough to have been working on the LT6 engine. We're currently here at the ride event. I got some couple key parts that we brought because frankly they're cool and they add a lot to what makes the LT6 so special. Here we have the intake manifold. This is really a key enabler to the power we make. It's got dual 87 millimeter throttle bodies that each feed at each banks has its own plenum. In between the plenums, we have three 75 millimeter tuning valves. And then inside of the plenums, there are trumpets or inlet flutes. Each one is different as you work your way back through the intake manifold, and they're optimized for the firing order of the engine and that cylinder's location. And this intake manifold allows up to 110% volumetric efficiency. So to put that in context, you get 10% more air than is available for the cylinder at atmospheric pressure. So really this 5.5 liter operates like a 6 liter airflow wise at high engine speed due to this intake manifold. Next to that, we have the block assembly. As you can see, given the very short 80 millimeter stroke of the LT6, it is a very compact design that was it's a bespoke block designed specifically for the task of the LT6. Integrated in the block, we have scavenge core passages. The block is really an enabler for the lube system to do its job with all the passages in it. And each of the 4 crank bays are completely isolated from each other with the bulkheads, once again, to enable the dry sump system. Kind of the heart everybody's talking about, we have our crankshaft, which is obviously a flat plane crank, in comparison to a cross plane crank that has the pins split at 90 degrees. The rod journals are all in one plane across the crankshaft, which allows for a much lighter weight crankshaft. You don't need as much counterweighting to balance the crank as an assembly. And this crank is a third lighter, 33% lighter than an LT2 crankshaft. Next, we have really what I think is a piece of jewelry in the engine. It's an example of the cylinder head. To go with the intake manifold, you have to allow it to breathe for that tuning to take effect and get the air into the cylinder head. The entire surfaces of the intake port, combustion chambers, and the throats of the exhaust valve or exhaust ports are 100% CNC machined and then laser scanned in production to make sure they're done exactly to our specifications. And it's true jewelry of race car parts. Looking at this cylinder head here, it's a fantastic design. Lastly, we have our upward swept exhaust manifolds. Kind of same orientation as you see in the LT2 engine, but what's more exotic about this is we have these zero clearance wrapped heat shields on it, which do a fantastic job of managing the temperatures around the exhaust manifold. The other great thing they do is they're very visible in the car, and our personal opinion is these shields look fantastic, and they kind of turn what some of us call a golden brown delicious as you truly track the car.
Now, all of these are done to increase, obviously, the high-speed engine speed capabilities of the vehicle, and they also lend its immediacy when you're on the throttle. You roll on the throttle and things happen very quickly because it revs so rapidly, correct?
Correct, and the big enabler of that is back to the crankshaft, and we didn't really talk about the connecting rods and power cells. All the parts in the engine that are moving the fastest and you need to accelerate to the high speeds are very light. We did everything we could to keep all the mass out of those, and it's that low inertia that allows the rotated parts to accelerate so rapidly. And you couple that with the input of the flow getting from the intake manifold and those other parts, really accelerates this engine up to red line with great vigor.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That same level of exotic engineering you just heard about is also seen in the magnetic ride control, carbon fiber wheels, and carbon ceramic brakes that are all available on the Z06. And even when you add all of those features, the car's an excellent bargain in the supercar world. So what holds the Corvette Z06 back from being as desirable as, say, a Porsche 911 GT3, Lamborghini Huracan STO, or McLaren 765 LT? It's two things actually, weight and styling. And ironically, if Chevrolet addressed one issue on the car, they could fix both of these problems. First, the C8 Corvette's busy styling and hefty hindquarters simply don't contribute to its exotic appeal. It's clear the designers were going after a Ferrari look, but it didn't really work because there's just too much going on. A slimmer, sleeker design, especially behind the doors, would go a long way here. Second, this long-standing and, in my opinion, tired requirement that every Corvette's trunk be capable of carrying at least 2 sets of golf clubs, that's adding to the car's ponderous profile. And truthfully, it's not necessary if Chevrolet wants to appeal to European sports car buyers. These guys are not looking to have a big trunk capacity, they're looking to have a lighter, more effective track weapon. Now, plenty of guys who are 65 plus wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops, they like to brag about their Corvette's trunk capacity, but if you appeal to those guys, you are not going to appeal to the ones who are 20 to 30 years younger than them buying Porsches, Lamborghinis, and McLarens. If the Corvette lost the trunk and the weight and bulkiness and styling that go with it, remember, it's a mid-engine sports car, so even if the trunk goes away, there's a frunk. You still have storage capacity. If it did that, they could have a real Euro Slayer on their hands. Imagine, they don't have to do all of them this way. They could keep producing the cars they have now. But what about a limited production Corvette Z06 or something else that doesn't have a trunk at all, has a much tighter rear quarter and roof line that wraps around the body much more aggressively? Now it's shorter, it's lighter, and it's more track focused. This isn't that hard to do, and it isn't that hard to fix if Chevrolet wants to. Instead, Chevrolet has made its choice in terms of both styling and trunk capacity, and not surprisingly, they're appealing to the same people they've appealed to for the past 70 years of the car's history. That's okay, they're going to sell plenty of Corvettes like that, but this video is about what holds the Corvette back from being a truly European exotic rival. And that's what holds it back. And it's pretty easy to fix if they want to. The basic platform, design, and certainly the drivetrain is fabulous. Some tweaks to the exterior styling and the length and the weight, get it down a couple 100 pounds, make it a little more of a tighter package exterior-wise, you'd have a real appealing vehicle there, and you might pull in some Porsche, Lamborghini, McLaren, Ferrari, who knows?